This video examines the 2021 Taman Sri Muda flood, focusing on its development history, engineering causes, impacts, and subsequent mitigation efforts.
In December 2021, the infrastructure of Selangor, Malaysia, completely vanished under floodwater. Major highway ramps and intersections were swallowed, severing access to the region. Looking at the stranded vehicles and submerged transport lines, the immediate public and media consensus pointed to a single culprit: freak, unprecedented rainfall. But in disaster risk management, blaming the weather provides an incomplete and dangerous analysis. What actually destroyed this community was a compound urban flood. Disaster risk is calculated by multiplying the hazard, in this case the rain, by the exposure and the physical vulnerability of the environment it hits. To understand this disaster, we have to look past the sky and examine the interacting geographic and hydraulic layers on the ground. This is Taman Sri Muda, Section 25. It is a dense 600-acre township containing over 9,000 homes, built inside a tight meander of the Klang River. The 2021 disaster occurred when extreme weather triggered a geographic and engineered trap that had been decades in the making. Roughly 90% of Taman Sri Muda sits on a severely low slope of less than 1.4 degrees. Because the terrain is almost completely flat, overland flow cannot drain quickly. Even in moderate rain, water slowly pools in these low-lying zones. Thousands of concrete roofs and paved roads sit on top of this flat terrain. These highly impervious surfaces prevent water from soaking into the ground, rapidly accelerating surface runoff. All of this accelerated runoff is channeled toward a single natural exit point, the adjacent Klang River, positioned at the downstream end of a massive drainage basin. Injecting rapid runoff into a heavily concreted flat basin next to a major river creates an environment with zero margin for error. The area survives entirely on the capacity of its artificial drainage infrastructure. Under normal conditions, local runoff flows through gravity drains, moving safely from higher street levels down into the receiving river. During intense regional storms, the Klang River itself swells with water from upstream catchments. This raises the water level at the exact point where the township's drains try to empty. This chart shows the concept of high tailwater. When the river level exceeds the internal drainage level, gravity discharge stops. Without physical barriers, the river can even flow backward into the town. To prevent backflow, the township closes its floodgates and relies entirely on mechanical pumps. These pumps are required to artificially lift the internal runoff over the gates and out into the swollen river. Once the river rises, gravity stops working. Taman Sri Muda becomes physically sealed off, and its survival dictates entirely on whether the pumps can outpace the falling rain. Urban flooding is governed by a strict storage equation. The change in volume equals inflow plus local runoff minus outflow. In December 2021, continuous extreme rain maximized the inflow. Simultaneously, pump capacity limits and the blocking river created a hard mechanical ceiling on the outflow. The physical manifestation of this mathematical imbalance was rapid, inescapable inundation across the entire residential grid. This failure trapped residents inside single-story homes. Water rapidly filled ground floor properties, turning a drainage constraint into an immediate life safety crisis. The flood materialized the exact moment the volume of incoming water exceeded the mechanical capacity to pump it away. As the water level rose, access roads and highway ramps submerged, completely cutting the township off from ground-based emergency vehicles. First responders faced a severe logistical nightmare. They had to navigate dangerous, submerged streets in small watercraft to reach stranded, highly vulnerable residents. Evacuation centers, or PPS shelters, faced compounding struggles with accessibility, overcrowding, and a lack of power during the regional blackout. When waters finally receded, residents returned to severe physical damage. Homes, vehicles, and livelihoods were buried in toxic mud, leaving a long-term socioeconomic toll. National statistics calculate statewide financial losses, but they fail to capture the profound, localized suffering that occurs when urban engineering fails to account for compound risks. The official state response includes a 140.7 million ringgit flood mitigation project for Section 25, scheduled for completion in 2029. This chart shows the engineering goal of that capital project, upgrading the infrastructure to provide a protection level up to a 200-year average recurrence interval. Building larger pumps and higher embankments is necessary, but it only addresses the hazard side of the risk equation. True disaster resilience requires addressing exposure and vulnerability. Urban planners must understand the dynamic, compound limits of the built environment long before the water rises. To survive a changing climate, we must stop treating floods merely as acts of nature and design our cities to adapt.
In December 2021, Taman Sri Muda, a township in Shah Alam, was swallowed by one of Malaysia's worst floods. 1 month's rain fell in a single day. Waters rose to 7 feet. Residents spent nights on rooftops. At least 9 bodies were recovered from this area alone. This disaster wasn't just bad weather. It was a failure decades in the making. Warnings were ignored. In October 2021, 2 months before the floods, Assemblyman V. Ganapati Rao confronted officials over a faulty pump at Taman Sri Muda. He warned, "It's been more than a week and the faulty pump has not been replaced. This is monsoon season." The pump was never fixed. The development was approved in 2015, with building plans passed in 2017. The government maintains the developer complied with conditions. But a legal loophole allowed upstream development to channel water into Taman Sri Muda's drains, handling triple their designed capacity. On the day of the flood, the sluice gate had to be closed to stop river backflow. The pumps were the only defense. But TNB substations were submerged, cutting electricity. The pumps stopped. Water had nowhere to go. Some waited days for rescue. A pregnant woman, scheduled to deliver in 2 days, was trapped with her family. Rescuers had to break through bedroom grills to save them. One resident recalled, "The army came once, they never came back." The flood exposed a system designed for a reality that no longer exists. Overdevelopment, aging infrastructure, ignored warnings. For the residents of Taman Sri Muda, the water will come again, unless the promises made by developers and politicians finally become reality. Produced by investigative reports. Sources: Bernama, Free Malaysia Today, Focus Malaysia, The Vibes, World of Buzz.
This section examines the flood mechanism in Taman Sri Muda during the December 2021 event. The JPS map identifies 3 pump areas. Area 1 contains the permanent pump. Areas 2 and 3 were supported by mobile pumps. The map also shows 2 warning siren stations. They are officially labeled Station 2 and Station 3. These components formed the local drainage and warning system. But what rainfall conditions overwhelmed it? Met Malaysia's official monsoon review provides the rainfall evidence used here. Table 4 records exceptionally high daily rainfall across several stations. KLIA received 188 millimeters on 17 December. On 18 December, Subang recorded 253 millimeters. Petaling Jaya recorded 201 millimeters on the same day. Together, these stations confirm exceptional rainfall across Selangor, but not the exact total at Taman Sri Muda. What produced this exceptional rainfall? Figure 10 shows the atmospheric evolution during the December monsoon surge, focusing on the panels from 17 and 18 December. On the 17th, strong northeasterly flow combined with regional circulation influenced by Typhoon Rai to the east, supporting moisture convergence near the Strait of Malacca. The same pattern persisted into 18 December, not a new system, but a continuation. In summary, the monsoon surge and typhoon-influenced circulation together supported moisture convergence, leading to persistent heavy rainfall that initiated and intensified the flood event. Taman Sri Muda lies beside the Klang River. Its dense urban setting increased exposure to runoff and river flooding. Much of the area is relatively low-lying, so floodwater could spread and remain within the neighborhood. The terrain is also generally flat, and the gentle gradient slowed natural drainage. Built-up surfaces dominate much of the study area. These urban surfaces reduced infiltration and concentrated runoff. Floodwater spread through residential blocks and internal roads. The result was widespread water retention across the neighborhood. Low elevation, gentle slope, and dense urban surfaces worked together, allowing floodwater to accumulate across a wide area. Station 2 issued 6 warning alerts and 16 danger alerts. Station 3 issued 10 warning alerts and 10 danger alerts. The escalation from warning to danger shows that flood conditions intensified to a severe level. As conditions worsened, pumping became increasingly important for removing floodwater from the neighborhood. JPS records identify one permanent pump in Area 1 and mobile pumping support in Areas 2 and 3. Area 1 operated from 17 December, stopped after a power cut on the 18th, and restarted with a generator on the 22nd. Area 2 used 4 mobile pumps, while Area 3 used 4 141-liter per second units. By 23 December, floodwater had fully receded. But why had pumping become so necessary? Under normal conditions, runoff drains into the Klang River because the neighborhood water level is higher than the river. As the river rises, this hydraulic difference becomes smaller, slowing gravity drainage and increasing the risk of backflow. Closing the sluice gate prevents river water from entering Taman Sri Muda, but it also blocks free drainage. The area then depends on pumps, reliable electricity, and effective gate operation. Exceptional rainfall, rapid runoff, and a high river level were the primary drivers. Low terrain, impervious surfaces, restricted drainage, pump dependence, and maintenance constraints amplified the event. Rainfall controlled the inflow. River and system conditions controlled the outflow.
In December 2021, the Taman Sri Muda flood became one of Malaysia's worst natural disasters. Over 4,400 houses were affected, with initial losses estimated at 396 million. More than 570 victims were evacuated. Water levels reached up to 4 meters, nearly submerging entire houses in low-lying areas. Ahmad Tarmizi Yaakob, a 52-year-old resident of 14 years, lost between 20,000 and 40 in property damage.
We lost everything in just a few hours. Saya memang jangka itulah jumlah yang dialami kerana struktur rumah memang sudah rosak.
3 televisions, a computer, and a laptop were destroyed. His Proton Wajah car was completely submerged. Manikam Palaniandi suffered losses of 130,000, including 4 cars completely destroyed.
Habis semua, kereta, barang rumah, semua pudar. Saya baru tinggal di sini sejak 2 tahun lalu. Memang sangat terkilan.
His Nissan Sylphy, Honda Jazz, Toyota Vios, and Mazda were submerged under 12 feet of water. 42 lost over 1 million ringgit. This was the result of the devastating flood.
4 premis perniagaan, kediaman beliau, dan 2 buah kenderaan, semuanya musnah akibat banjir.
Saimina Lushni, 24, who was rescued by volunteers, now has nightmares every time it rains.
Every time it rains, the fear comes back.
Now every time it rains, I have nightmares. Or start fearing that the water will start rising.
Saimina's family is now planning to move out of Taman Sri Muda completely.
Long-term residents like Ithnin Wagyo and M. Sundram cannot sleep if it rains heavily at night. always worried about flooding. 50 residents have filed a RM 3.7 million lawsuit against 10 authorities, listing 21 categories of losses. Yet despite all the losses, the community's spirit to rise again shows that behind every statistic, there are human lives.
Following the devastating flood, emergency shelter became the next priority. As floodwaters rose rapidly across Taman Sri Muda, thousands of residents were forced to leave their homes in search of safety. Rescue teams, together with volunteers and government agencies, worked tirelessly to evacuate families from flooded neighborhoods. The displaced residents were then relocated to temporary evacuation centers or pusat pemindahan sementara where emergency assistance and shelters were provided. The PPS served as a safe place for displaced families by providing temporary accommodation and a secure environment. Temporary family tents were introduced to improve privacy and more organized living space for victims. Healthcare teams were deployed to provide first aid, health assessment, ensuring that immediate healthcare needs addressed. Despite providing essential shelter and assistance, the PPS also faced several operational challenges. Some relief centers experienced electricity power cut, while large number of victims placed additional pressure on essential services. For better understand how these challenges were managed, we interviewed an officer involved in flood management during the 2021 disaster.
Kalau ada juga kita kena hadapi mangsa-mangsa yang tak nak berpindah kan, belum tentu ada orang belum tentu dia nak pindah, dia merasakan diri dia selamat. Jadi sama juga dekat Sri Muda tu kan, ni sampai MB yang Muhammad Datuk Menteri Besar sendiri turun mengajak mereka ni masuk ke pusat pemindahan supaya tahu data mangsa. Pusat pemindahan ni kita kena pastikan keselesaan juga keselesaan kepada mangsa lah yang tinggal dalam tu kita utamakan. Contoh macam tu nak kena mencukupi lah. Air tangki besar daripada air Selangor kita provide kepada penduduk. Kebekalan air bersih dan juga air mineral lah. Dan NGO tak putus-putus memberikan bantuan.
During the flood, JPS and NADMA coordinated multiple emergency operations, including the deployment of additional pumps, water gate management, and river flow control to reduce flood levels and support evacuation efforts. Following the 2021 Taman Sri Muda flood, the government initiated a series of long-term flood mitigation projects to strengthen the area's resilience. Flood bunks were constructed along the Klang River to reduce the risk of flood. Drainage system was upgraded to improve stormwater flow during heavy rainfall. Dredging works were carried out to remove sediments and debris, restoring the capacity of rivers and drainage channels. Additional flood pumps were installed to accelerate the removal of excess flood water. Retention ponds were also expanded to temporarily store excess runoff, helping to reduce peak water levels before the water is safely discharged.